This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the music ranking, reviewing, and just sort of whatever musical related topics that we like to call on this podcast called Music Meltdown. That's my worst intro in a while. This is kind of an interesting subject that I wanted to try and do. It is the holiday season in the States right now, and it is currently, as I record this, Thanksgiving Day. And in a sense, this could sort of be viewed as records that I am thankful for, or records that I really appreciate, as I'm going to be going through the years 1965 to current year and stating my absolute favorite record from each of those years. I have a couple of friends alongside me. I have Harvey, who will later be featuring in the Small Faces, as well as Faces discography that I'm going to be doing, and as well another buddy of mine, Andrew.
Hey there.
And pretty much just going to go one through one, just sort of try and have a roundtable discussion about this sort of thing. If you guys want to talk about any records that are important to you for these years as well, if you want to critique me, do whatever you feel is necessary. I just think to have some fun, let's talk about some music that we all enjoy. Or yeah, I hope that you enjoy.
We don't celebrate Thanksgiving here in the UK, but I can get on board with saying thank you to some records.
Absolutely. Well, with that being said, is there anything that you guys want to say beforehand, or are we good to get right into things?
I think we're good to go.
Good to go. We know that 66 is going to be controversial, apparently.
Well, yes. Would it be? Yes, my 66, that's going to be a contentious choice, but we'll get there soon.
After you do 65, I'll say what my two guesses are.
Okay, that works. Well, to start out, we're going in 1965, and a very close runner-up for me was going to be Highway 61 Revisited by Bob Dylan. But the record that I ultimately ended up deciding with was Otis Blue by Otis Redding. I just think that it's a really great collection of classic R&B and soul tunes. Otis has just an immaculate voice, and the songs to accompany it are just absolutely outstanding. Now, a dud here and really showcases his talents within this decade. Anything to add, or?
I do not know that one, but sounds great.
Oh yeah.
I'm just trying to find. I've got my collection with me. I'm trying to find my 65 one. If you know me, I'm sure you can guess what it is.
Rubber Soul?
Yes, if I can find it.
That's all good.
Oh my god, I've got so many. The good thing my camera's not on because I'm.
It's all right. Andy, do you have anything to add about Otis Blue?
I'm a fan of what I know from Otis. Probably need to check out more in terms of his actual just album to album catalog, but
for sure.
Good pick. If
Absolutely.
You're not going with like one of the, conventional number ones that people always say.
One record that would also be pretty high up there is Mr. Tambourine Man by the Byrds, but I don't know, that's a very good record. I think it's a great record. I just don't think that it quite showcases that band at their proper talents, especially given what they later went on to do within the same decade. That being said, though, this is the money. It's the money pick.
Let me guess.
Go ahead.
Okay. First guess is Da Capo by Love. Second, and I'm feeling a bit more confident about this now you've mentioned this band, Fifth Dimension by the Byrds.
Well, should have been more confident in the first one. It was Da Capo by Love. I think that this record is super interesting. I think it has a really great, almost, I wouldn't say Baroque, but it has a really great folk pop element to it, and I absolutely love the closing, almost predecessor to a lot of the progressive epics that would go on later in the decade. I've heard the self-titled, I've heard Forever Changes, but this is the only Love record of like their big ones that really connects with me personally. I think that it's just a really unique blend, and it's incredibly unique to this year as well. And just from what I've heard, a lot of 60s material as a whole.
I just put my video on because I did find Rubber Soul in the end. That's my favorite album of 1965.
Fair choice.
Close second would be Highway 61 Revisited by Bob Dylan.
Nice.
And I'll give some shout outs to The Beach Boys Today by the Beach Boys, Help by the Beatles, and Bringing It All Back Home also by Bob Dylan.
Yeah, those are all fair. But anything to say about Love and by Virtue Da Capo?
Sorry, what was that?
Anything to add about Love for that record?
I love Love, and that's a great album. I was that when I see because I knew it wouldn't be Pet Sounds or Revolver.
Yeah.
And then we saw.
Okay. Andrew?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a Love fan. More of a Forever Changes guy, but Da Capo has some great cuts too. 7 and 7 is definitely, maybe like a top 10 song for the year for me. So great stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think most people that inhale oxygen are typically more of a Forever Changes fan. I'm cut from a different cloth as it would appear. 67. This is an interesting year because I think that 67 is very strong, but I do think that it's another year that maybe gets a little bit overhyped, especially by a certain band. And I'm going with possibly the rival to that band. I'm going with the record Between the Buttons, the US version from the Rolling Stones. To me, it's just their best blending of their psychedelic era, their early pop writing, and it has a slight touch of the early blues that they would start with. Songs like Ruby Tuesday, Yesterday's Paper, Let's Spend the Night Together, just so many really outstanding pop numbers here, and it just showcases the band at the peaks of their talent, in my opinion.
I've got 67 Magical Mystery Tour.
Mhm.
Also, The Doors with
Ooh.
maybe the first amazing debut ever. I don't know. I have to think about that. But it's one hell of a debut.
I'd say Mr. Tambourine Man. It's
Yeah.
not as monumental, but it's equally quite good.
I can see that. I can also see an argument for If You Can Believe Your Eyes and Ears.
Ooh.
Maybe I'm the only one who loves it. I'm probably the only person on the planet who has that at 5 stars. So
I don't have it at 5 stars, but I have the first two Moms and the Papas records at pretty solid 4s. We did a video on them a while ago, and I seem to be the highest on them overall.
I definitely subscribe to 67 being a stacked year.
Yeah.
I really like Between the Buttons, though. It'd probably make my top 5. And this is probably where Forever Changes would slide in number 1.
Well,
Forever Changes will be up there for me, but I love Between the Buttons. I think it's probably in my top 5 Stones albums, but my favorite Stones album came out this year, which is the other one, their Satanic Majesty's Request. It's probably the one I've listened to the most, which might be surprising because it's not, Sticky Fingers or Exile or Let It Bleed. But I just love the creativity on that one.
yeah, spoiler for if I ever do the Stones. This is also my favorite Stones record. It's basically between this and Some Girls, but that's my pretty easy, top 2.
Yeah, I'd say Some Girls might be up there, but some of the lyrics on that album, I'm just like, Mick.
I get that. Now, 68, this is by far my favorite year in the 60s. I just listened to that today. I thought it was very, very good, but it can't touch.
I think I know what it's going to be.
It's obvious. If you've seen my band video, it is obviously music from Big Pink. But let's keep talking because my 69 record is the band self-titled. I think that both of these records are just absolutely superb. There's not, get that out of there. That doesn't touch either of these records. To me, these are just both utterly outstanding, sort of folky rock records. You can tell that they were working with Dylan extensively at the time, and I prefer Zeppelin too. But yeah, you can tell that they were working. Fair enough. You can tell that they're extensively working with Dylan. The lyrics on these records are just absolutely superb. I love the melody writing and the organ, especially across all of the early band records, but especially these two is just second to none. There's just so much absolutely outstanding material upon both of these. Down on Cripple Creek, something like I can't believe I'm blanking on like song titles from Big Pink, and it sucks because I adore that record. But it's just like the weight. Yeah, Tears of Rage. That's the big one. But yeah, anything to add about these band records?
I like the band a lot. Primarily these 2 records, especially Big Pink. It might be kind of up there for me in the year if it weren't for a certain record from the Zombies.
I wish I liked Odyssey and Oracle more.
Yeah, 68 for me would be the White Album,
That's
and
fair.
obviously not Recall. And 60, another contender for me in 68 would be Village Green by the Kinks.
I will say, I think that both of you are missing a very strong record in Aerial Ballet
Yeah,
by
that's
Harry
a
Nilsson.
good one.
Absolutely. And as well, I can't believe I couldn't get this at number one because it's my second favorite record of the decade. Sweetheart of the Rodeo by the Byrds, just absolutely tremendous. The first and probably the best country rock record, just really outstanding.
And my 69 is pretty obvious. If you know me, it's Abbey Road, which is my favorite album of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I can't fault you for that one. It's pretty all right. Now, 1970 is when I get to show up, and oh wow, that light is bright. This is when I get to talk about the Beatles, but I'm not talking about them in the sense that you would expect, because I'm talking about Plastic Ono Band by John Lennon. Yep, there's a spoiler. I'm going to come out and say it. This is my absolute favorite Beatles related record in general. I think that this record is just absolutely outstanding. I think that it's incredibly raw, incredibly touching, just an incredibly gripping record. A track like Mother, God, something like Working Class Hero, it just speaks to me in a way that very few records do. It's like the first true singer-songwriter record to me that's able to just strictly hit me in an emotional standpoint and leave me fully captivated for the full extent of the listen. And I think it's something that John Lennon especially was never able to fully capture in his time in the Beatles. And it took him being separated in arguably a bit of a messy situation that really caused him to lash out in this way. And it's just so powerful to me, this record. In case you can't tell, it's an easy 5.
Yeah. All Things Must Pass would be my album of the year for 70, but I can't fault the Plastic Ono Band pick. But my favorite, well, I don't know, I go back and forth. This is probably my most listened to album ever for 71. But yeah, I think that's a good pick for 70, and probably maybe a bit overshadowed by All Things Must Pass. I did always say that I preferred Imagine, but I saw a review a couple of weeks ago where they penalized Imagine because of How Do You Sleep, and how it sort of kind of boxed Paul into a corner about sort of the less cool Beatle, which as a Paul fan, you know, I can kind of see the argument, but I mean, his first 2 solo records are great. But those are his first 2, not the albums he made with Yoko in the 60s.
I hadn't heard those, but in some ways they do intrigue me because I do like a lot of avant-garde sort of experimental music like that. They interest me, but I don't know how interested I am to actually listen to them. If that makes sense.
I have listened to all 3 of them. It's a bit of a vibe, is what I'm gonna say.
Okay. Well, we're getting me again here because I've accidentally spoiled the record twice. We're talking Hunky Dory by David Bowie. To me, his absolute pinnacle as an artist. This is the only 5-star record I actually give to David Bowie. And I think that it's outstanding. It's before he sort of fully conformed himself to the glam movement that he would later turn into, but it's not the late 60s sort of singer-songwriter Baroque stuff that he was doing on his self-titled, nor is it the sort of weirder folky psychedelia that he was doing on Space Oddity, and it's also not the hard rock that he was doing on The Man Who Sold the World. Until Hours, this is his most overt singer-songwriter piece. It's where I feel he's doing the most direct character studies, and he's really just speaking his mind about anything that he loves. Just there's so many great songs on this record. I think Changes is incredible. Oh You Pretty Things. I really like 8-Line Poem. Just the entire side one is great. And something like Andy Warhol and Song for Bob Dylan, I will stand by as being some of the best material that he ever made. They're just super interesting, super well written, and captivating songs to me. Just really an incredible record on pretty much every level to me.
I'd also go 5 for that one. Only behind another Bowie coming shortly after that. but it's a great record. And I feel like there's a part of it that has like a tiniest bit of that 60s pop lingering in there, but with like
Absolutely.
the arrangements
Absolutely.
amped up.
But for me, 1971, my album of the year is obvious, is Ram by Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
And Linda McCartney, can't forget her.
Yeah.
It's probably my most listened to album ever. Or I don't want to stray away from Abbey Road, but on some days, it might be my favorite album of all time. I think it's an album that I don't think any other album has balanced creativity and sort of standard songwriting as well as that one. And I think every song on it really slaps. And I think the fact that that's not in 1001 albums is, I think, an insult. So justice for Ram.
Yeah, I think Ram is pretty great. I only give it 4 stars, but I'm going back to it because I'm doing McCartney in January. But I feel like I find Ram more interesting than most Beatles records, which might be sacrilegious, but it's just
I agree.
it's so unique within the McCartney canon, and just how he was after the Beatles. There's so many just absolutely amazing songs on there too. Too Many People,
Yeah.
Uncle Albert,
I
Monkberry Moon Delight. Is that what it's called? Love that
Yeah,
song.
I couldn't agree more actually. That and I'm the biggest Beatle maniac, but I couldn't agree more that it's more interesting than most Beatles albums.
Absolutely. Now, 72, Andrew, you mentioned a certain Bowie record from this year,
I did.
but we are not talking about that Bowie record. We are talking about the glammiest of glam records, the Slider by Mark Bolan and T-Rex. Just absolute glam excess. The production on this record is utterly sublime. Mark Bolan, he's not a great singer. And I don't think a lot of glam frontmen were necessarily great singers, but it was more about the personality. And I feel like him and somebody from a record I'm going to be talking about very shortly are just the peak of personality and sexuality and just everything that glam was standing for. It's just an absolutely infectious and just fun record, even when it's slowed down and goes into more of the folky psychedelia that he sort of brewed from. There's just so many great songs, Mel Guru, Rabbit Fire. Yeah, there's just too many great things about this record.
Yeah, that's the first match we've had. That's also my album of the year for 72. And I think Rabbit Fighter is maybe the best glam rock song.
I don't know if I would go there.
I went there.
It's interesting because we're going to talk about it next record, but I think the best glam song is written by Bowie, but it's not performed by Bowie. It probably is All the Young Dudes by Mott the Hoople. Like that song is just absolutely tremendous on all accords. But
Can see the argument.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's the same as me. I think that would be the first one we've had shared so far.
Nice.
And also shout outs to Pink Moon by Nick Drake and Ziggy Stardust by David Bowie.
Not the biggest Pink Moon fan. It's grown on me since I did the Nick Drake video, but I'm still not in love with it.
Yeah, it's like Ram. It's just an album that is in constant rotation for me.
That's fair. Andrew, anything to comment about the Slider?
I mean, I think it's just a testament to this being like the peak of glam that you have two kind of all-timer records here that you can easily make the argument for.
And if we're being honest, you could probably make the argument for 3, but the third one is very definitively third for me of the big 3 glam records that came out this year.
Yeah, I don't think All the Young Dudes really comes close to Slider or Ziggy Stardust, but it's a great one.
Well, we've been talking about him.
Oh,
I adore Mott the Hoople. I think that these guys are just absolutely tremendous. I will say, because I don't know when I'm going to do a Mott video, but I'm just going to come out and say it. I think that the actual record, All the Young Dudes, I think it's incredibly overrated. It's like by far my least favorite Mott the Hoople record. The title track is amazing. There's some great stuff on it, but past that, it's just really, it's kind of like we talked about the Faces earlier. It's just sort of a substandard rock record. But on here, it has so many of the interesting elements of Ian Hunter as a frontman and just them as a group. Because they sort of exist in this weird period of glam where they aren't necessarily these big frontmen. Like Ian Hunter isn't a David Bowie. He isn't a Mark Bowen. He's very much this introspective, sort of thought-provoking figure who questions a lot of the fame and the royalty that's came out of Whatnot. And he's able to blend that in with just some absolutely incredible glam rocking tunes, stuff like All the Way from Memphis, Honolulu Boogie, Violence. And then you still have stuff like Ballad of Mott the Hoople and Driving Sister in the second half that sort of parallels it. It's a super just unique record by an incredibly interesting band for this era and for this style of music, in my opinion.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that, but
Yeah.
I think it's a good choice. I would probably say for 73, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath by Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
Also, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road by Elton John. Band on the Run by Paul McCartney. Yeah, I know, I'm a McCartney fan, whatever.
What?
Make fun of me if you want. Make fun of me if you want.
I couldn't pick up on that.
Sorry, you couldn't see that.
I couldn't pick up on you being a McCartney fan.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I would also
You've
like to
hidden
say
it so
this
well.
yeah.
Hmm.
This is also the year that Bruce Springsteen debuted. So wow, what an amazing year. No.
There's also another very important singer-songwriter that debuted this year with
yeah,
one of his
love
best
him.
records.
Love him. Love Bruce Springsteen.
I'm talking about Closing Time by Tom Waits.
Oh, yeah.
That's probably my
Take him
number
over-
two.
Take him over Bruce Springsteen. Also, while we're on the topic of 73, I don't think Dark Side of the Moon would make my top 5 for this year.
Oh, it wouldn't even make my top 10. It might make a top 15.
Yeah,
I'll
I'm
be the
trying to-
Dark Side fan here, but I
It's
think
somebody
as far
has to
as-
be.
As far as this goes, I would probably give it to Elton John this time.
Nice.
One of my favorite double albums. So
Yeah, I think that's one of the most well done double albums. That's like a rare case of a double album. That, I mean, say what you want about Jamaica Jerk Off or whatever it's called, but I
Yeah.
think that's one of the rare
That's the big one.
double albums that manages to keep it going through the whole time. Most of the time with double albums, there's always a point where it's like, can you just be over? And that's Yellow Brick Road is one of the few double albums that I don't really feel like that.
Yeah. And you can contrast that greatly to another double record that he made not too many years later in Blue Moves and just show how turbulent his career really was.
Yeah,
And I'm a Blue Moves defender. I really like that record, but it doesn't come
I come
close.
around on Blue Moves. I used to think it was just kind of Yellow Brick Road light, but I can see that it's a good album in its own right. Just maybe not a worthy double album.
Of course. Another great one for 73 is the debut New York Dolls record. It's gone down since I first heard it, but I still think that that's like a peak of sort of glam and sort of proto-punk.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else is in 73. Wizard Crew Star, Aladdin Sane.
Yep. I think we got most of the big ones. Well, let's just move on.
Holy is
Ooh,
one of my favorite Led Zeppelin records.
I haven't heard that one yet, actually.
Oh, yeah, House of the Holy. Yeah.
Well, I figure we should get into 74, and it's going to be an interesting one because I'm talking about a band that I'm not going to say too much about this record. I'm talking about El Dorado by the Electric Light Orchestra. I'm doing a video with, I think, a mutual of all of us, Patrick, about ELO. It's been recorded. It's not currently up yet, so I'm going to leave my opinions sort of blanket on this one. But as you can see, it's winning the year for me in the 70s, so I think that you sort of get my opinions from there.
Mhm.
It's a good pick.
Absolutely.
I could be convinced. I wasn't sure about this year, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
74 is a weird year.
yeah.
Yeah, 74 is a weird year for me too. This is the first year where I don't have a definitive album of the year. I can, yeah, like Andrew said, I can be convinced of El Dorado.
One that comes very close for me is Sheet Music by 10cc.
Ooh, interesting.
Port and Spark by Joni Mitchell. I think
Ooh.
very underrated Bob Dylan album, Planet Waves.
Ooh. I haven't heard either of those, but they both are definitely on my radar for stuff that I need to check out.
Yeah, I think maybe I'm the only one who loves Planet. I have it as high as 6 on my Bob Dylan list, which is maybe the highest I've ever seen it. So
I believe 74 was Country Life by Roxy Music. That's a great one.
Yeah, 74, that's one of those years where sort of on the surface it doesn't seem that special, but
Yeah.
maybe it just seems
It has a good deal
doesn't seem
of.
as good just because of the year surrounding it, because I think 75 is a pretty stacked year.
Isn't this the year with both Queen 2 and Sheer Heart Attack?
Yeah.
I don't love either of those records, but just to point them out as ones that many people probably do.
Yeah, neither. I think next year is probably the peak of Queen. And I don't think that would even be in my top 5 for that year.
My favorite Queen record is the debut, actually. So, well, moving forward, we have 1975, and I'm talking about Futurama by Bebop Deluxe. To me, Bebop Deluxe, they're the light glam band, but they're in many ways the peak of glam to me. They're so eclectic, so unique, blending in all of these sort of art rock influences, sort of progressive elements as well. Very akin to like a Roxy Music, but sticking far more in the traditional rock vein. And to me, I think Bill Nelson is just absolutely one of the greatest guitarists of all time. I think that he's tremendous in pretty much everything. I think his writing is incredibly unique as well. I just love what he's able to put together. Stuff like Swan Song and title track alone from this record are just grounds for my winner.
Yeah, that's the first one since Otis I haven't heard, but
Yep.
They're definitely on my radar because I know that you love them and I know that Jason Reese loves them.
I think you'd
So,
quite
yeah,
like
they're
them.
definitely one that will be future endeavors.
Absolutely.
I definitely wasn't as high on Bebop, but this was the record that I had at the top.
Absolutely.
I think still pretty good. Liked it.
Well, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm not going to stop talking about them as 76 Summer's Finish wins for me. To me, it's just everything about Futurama, but slightly more pop leaning. The hooks are better, and it's just, once again, just a totally tremendous sort of art rock record. I just adore this group. I love them to an unreasonable degree. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check them out. I'd say another maybe generic pick for me. So 76 would be Station to Station, followed by Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder.
Funny you bring that up. Funny you bring up Songs in the Key of Life because that's actually my favorite double record ever. I think that record's just tremendous. Now, one record for 76 I want to bring up because it's so close to winning for me. I brought him up earlier. It's Small Change by Tom Waits. That's, in my opinion, his best record. It's the best blending of the later bluesy, sort of more aggro material he would come to make with the just beautiful, soft-spoken, amazing, jazzy piano-led material that he would do as well. I really love that record a lot. Oh my goodness. I just realized something. I own every record in the 70s that is my album of the year on vinyl, except for 79. How funny is that?
Maybe you got to change that now just to keep it going.
I got to get that 79 one, but I do own it on CD though. And 77 is an interesting year because I'm talking about a record that I'm not talking about Rumors. I am a notorious Bob Welch lover. But I'm talking about The Stranger by Billy Joel. In my opinion,
the chat.
What was that?
Ramza has left the chat.
It's okay. He doesn't need to be here. I just think Billy Joel is an absolutely incredible pop songwriter. I think he really just peaks on this record, especially, even if arguably his record from next year has higher highs. I think on this record, just song after song, it has some of his best hooks, his best backing tracks, stuff like Moving Out, The Stranger, Just the Way You Are, Since We're in an Italian Restaurant. I think Vienna is gorgeous. I love the sort of fun, sort of quirky nature of Only the Good Die Young and Get It Right the First Time. She's Always a Woman could have been an incredible closer. Unfortunately, they ruined it with Everybody Has a Dream, which is just overly long and overly sappy. But past that, I think that this record is just pop perfection.
Yeah, my 77 pick would be Rumors, and I think that it's either that or Ram for my favorite of the decade. And I'm going to make a guess for you for 78. We'll let Andrew talk about 77, but I think I know what it's going to be for 78.
I know it is.
So, I mean, Billy Joel,
I
like him, don't love him, but if I had to pick a record, it would be this one. A lot of cool hits on this one. some
Absolutely.
quality cuts. So.
Billy
Yeah.
Joel's a bit of a weird one for me because I could probably make a real killer album of some of his songs, but I'd say this and Nylon Curtain are the only ones that I think really sort of stand as albums for me.
I
Yeah,
say
Strangers, no doubt good. And for 78, I'm going to guess it's the Cars.
it's not the Cars, and I'm sorry, my friend,
This
but we're
is Model.
talking about Darkness on the Edge of Town by Bruce Springsteen. To me, this record is just absolutely incredible. I love this thing to pieces. I think Badlands is amazing. Adam Raised a Cain is such a unique song within his discography, but I just think that it's really fantastic. Something with the quick bounce and adrenaline of Candy's Room. Factory is such a deep and just dark song for him. Same with Streets of Fire. And the closing title track might be his best song in general. I know that you don't quite buy into Springsteen as an artist. I think this is him at his most genuine, but at his most successful. And it's really able just to showcase how he really can just get into the mind of the working class hero and just sort of embody all that that means, which I understand you don't quite believe, but I mean, I get it. But for me, I just think that that record speaks to me in a way that no other Springsteen record does.
I'm shocked. I thought it was going to be the Cars. I thought might be this year's Model, which probably my album of the year. But this is meant to be a positive Thanksgiving episode. I'm very thankful for Bruce's existence.
Well, you gotta fake it till you make it, I suppose.
Put me in the camp that was rooting for the Cars too, just so I could gush about it. But
It's my number two. It's my number two. It's so close. And I will say it now, Heartbeat City is also very close in 84, but doesn't quite do it for me. But yeah, anything to add about 78? In my opinion, the most underrated year of the decade. I love it.
Yeah,
I like it a lot.
I think I agree with that. I think 79 might be the weakest for me.
I agree.
Yeah, I think 78 is a bit underrated. 79, I wouldn't call it overrated, but I'd say it. I think people usually think of 78 as the weakest part of the decade. I'd say it's 79. I think there's some really good albums in 78.
Absolutely.
Including the Cars, this year's Model.
Excitable Boy.
Fan, I'm sure you love Darkness on the Edge of Town and all that. So yeah, I think it's an underrated year.
I have 76 as my least favorite of the 70s, for the record.
I had that for a bit too, but I'm finding more and more the more I keep digging into it. I know I have one more 5 outside of Small Change, but I'm blanking on it off the top of my head.
Yes, 79 for me. I think there might be better albums, but a bigger amount of better albums. But I think 78. I think sort of the peaks are higher than the peaks of 79. I probably have a 5-star album somewhere in 79, but the one on the top of my list is Fear of Music, which is only 4.5 for me. So
Technical Ecstasy by Black Sabbath is the one in 76, the 5 I was forgetting. I love that record.
Oh yeah, that's a great record. Yeah, that's one of the most overhated records ever.
Well, as you can tell, I slightly agree to that assessment on it.
Yeah, I can't believe that one's so unpopular. Is it just because it has Bill Ward singing one?
I think it's because of the heavier influence on keys and synthesizer, not just being as heavier of a record as something like Sabotage was. I get the outrage. That's just incorrect, though. So it is what it is.
Yeah, that's wrong. That's
79
going on my list of Sabbath albums.
Nice. It's my number 1. So 79. You brought him up before. Let's talk about Elvis Costello with Armed Forces. This could be 5 stars, but it has the one song where he says the thing and but past that, I think that this is just a really great sort of aggressive not sort of proto-punky, but like nerdy punk sort of mentality with just a bunch of greatly written and greatly performed sort of new wave pop rock songs. I think this was before he would turn into his pop perfection of the 80s, but it has enough of his personality that he had within the 70s to be like a great middle ground between them. it kind of sucks that he couldn't expand the sound a little bit further because he kind of had to make the Apology record in 1980. But yeah, still just a really great record in my opinion. And this is my collection of 70s records that, for me, rounds out the decade of some of the greatest.
Yeah, it's a great pick.
I'm surprised it wasn't Manifesto, but Armed Forces makes sense.
I love Manifesto, and I'm doing Roxy Music later this week, and you will hear about that hopefully this year. But I'm not even sure where that's going to rank for me. I'm listening to Roxy Music now. I just finished up their Country Life, and I need to listen to Siren after this. That discography is growing even more for me than I already had it, and they were already a top 20 band for me. So I'm thinking by the time that I'm done, they might be like a top 10 artist. I love Roxy Music. But let's shift gears.
To go through because every album has its merits, I think.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into the 80s, and this is kind of where my tastes, I feel, start to showcase a little bit more. And any guesses for 1980 out of curiosity?
Not for 80. I want to guess your 81 when we get there.
Absolutely.
Okay, 80. I'm gonna guess. Would it be Elvis again? I don't know. I'm gonna guess Peter Gabriel 3.
Given how fun fact, I'm actually not very high on Melt. That's like the Peter Gabriel record that I don't really get that in scratch.
No, I don't think it's gonna be Heaven and Hell.
Could be.
I'm gonna. Scary Monsters is my album of the year, but I don't know how widespread that opinion would be. I'm gonna stick with Get Happy.
Scary Monsters is probably my number 2, but my number 1 is actually Boy by U2.
Ooh.
I love this record. I think that it's their most energetic, their most sort of upfront record that they ever do. It's not trying as hard as some of the other later 80s records, like a Joshua Tree, like a Rattle and Hum, but it has sort of that post-punk atmosphere that they started out the decade with. You could maybe compare it a bit to a band that was starting around the same time, Echo and the Bunnymen, but I feel like they have a much stronger sort of appeal with hooks and pop writing. And Bono is just an absolute monster on this. See, we got a nice group of U2 fans here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll try and keep things positive. That I do like that album, even though I'm not a U2 fan in general. I kind of dislike them, but I do think there's a lot of good albums in 1980 as well. Like I said,
Absolutely.
Scary Monsters, Hotter Than July by Stevie Wonder's pretty underrated one, I feel.
That's a damn good one, yeah.
Got obviously Get Happy. You've got McCartney 2, which I think is great.
Wow, you think a McCartney album's great? Why?
Yeah, you know what? I think this is. Come on, you can't throw the criticisms that people give Paul and not give this a listen.
I haven't heard it. I'm getting to it because I'm going to start listening to Paul McCartney either next week or the week after because I'm doing him in January, like I mentioned.
You know McCartney 2 already?
I don't know McCartney 2 already. The only ones I actually know are Ram and Red Rose Speedway.
Yeah, I don't know how you'll feel about McCartney 2, to be honest.
I'm interested. Everything I've heard from it seems captivating.
Have you heard Temporary Secretary?
I need to hear a lot of McCartney. But Andrew, you said that you wanted to guess my 81 winner?
Yeah, it's my 81. I'm hoping it's yours based on what you said before. Is it Time by ELO?
Damn well right. It's Time by ELO.
I was also going to guess that.
I can't say too much about
82.
It. Okay. You guys are free to guess if you want as well, by the way. Just wait till we get there.
I know 82. I know what 82 is.
You guys should know 82. But yeah, once again, I'm doing the Electric Light Orchestra. I can't say too much about it. Time is an absolute masterpiece. I'll leave it at there. Very close to winning, though, was Dare by the Human League. In my opinion, that's like the greatest synth pop record of all time. I absolutely adore it. I own that on vinyl as well, but I don't have it with me.
Great album. Love the synth sound on that one.
Oh yeah, really cool. So good.
That might be my. Is it my favorite ELO album? Maybe it's up there.
It's up there for sure.
I'm not sure about 81 at the top of my head, but that's definitely a very strong contender for me.
For sure. Any guesses for 82 going into things? I feel like I've not hidden my favorite album from this year.
Yeah, I know what it is for 82, and it's mine as well, Imperial Bedroom.
Absolutely. In my opinion, this is Elvis Costello's peak as an artist. It's arguably a sophisticated record. It's when he sort of started leading a lot more into pop, sort of working off of what 60s artists were doing and just working with these shorter songs, but keeping it all in a nice, compact, I believe, 50-minute package. It's 15 tracks, and all of them are just some of his best written, best produced, and best sort of controlled material. The song Human Hands alone would be ground for it being up here. And very close as well as The Dreaming by Kate Bush. I absolutely love that record to death.
Beyond Belief,
Yeah.
definitely one of my favorite tracks of the year.
Oh,
Great
yeah.
song.
No arguments there. I think that's very easily the standout of the year.
And there's some other good records. Rio by Duran Duran, I think is great. Very controversially, I love The Hunter by Blondie. I think that record's amazing. But
I've also got a guess for 83. I'm not as confident in this one.
okay, go ahead.
Is it Punch the Clock?
You guys are really good at this so far. I think Punch the Clock, it's a clear step from Imperial Bedroom, just not quite as strong. I believe he brought in, I believe the producers that worked with Madness around a similar time.
Yeah, it was Madness and Dexy's Midnight Runners.
Yep, and this is his most directly pop forward, and it's just absolutely amazing. Some of his greatest hooks. It's a short record, but every song hits in a beautiful way. Stuff like Shipbuilding, Every Day I Write the Book are the immediate stands out, but there's just so much great material here.
My favorite track on there is The World and His Wife. I think
Ooh,
that
yeah,
I don't care if it's a deep cut. I think that song's an absolute banger.
absolutely.
But,
Something.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just going to say that's probably my second of the year. I'd say Speaking in Tongues takes it for me, but I think Punch the Clock is a very overlooked Costello record.
Absolutely. Speaking in Tongues would be pretty high up there as well. I believe 83 also had Power, Corruptions, and Lies by New Order, and I really love that record as well.
How do you guys feel about this year in general?
I
found it difficult to come up with like the obvious heavy hitters that I was happy with.
For sure. Some stuff that I really like is I think the Cheap Trick record from this year is really good. I really like Feline by the Stranglers. Debut Tears for Fears is also really good. This is a great year for synth pop. This is a really good synth pop year.
I agree that it's a weird year. I was looking through sort of the albums I have rated. There's a lot of 3.5s and only a few that sort of go above that. I'd say there's lots of good albums, maybe only a few great ones though. I'd say
I would agree with that.
Stance is also up there, but I'd say Punch the Clock and Speaking in Tongues is pretty easy top two for me that year.
Fair. For me, it's really Punch the Clock and War by U2 that are the main ones battling it out for the win. Any guesses for 84?
Oh, let me think for a second.
84 is an interesting year because I think that it's a little bit overrated, but I still think that there's plenty of really great stuff in it.
Oh, I'm not sure. I'm gonna guess the Smiths' debut.
Ooh, that's a nice one. Andrew, anything for 84?
Okay, so it's not that.
Well, I was going to ask him anyway.
Why don't we go with Hatful of Hollow if you count that?
Ooh, I do prefer Hatful of Hollow, but my Smiths winner wouldn't be Until Meat is Murder. Okay. But I did go with Let It Be by The Replacements. I love this record. I think that it's pretty much a pinnacle of post-punk. I think this is Paul Westerberg's best writing. I think it's his best collection of songs, and just the amount of power and just emotion he's able to put into something like Answering Machine. It just speaks to me in many ways that something like Plastic Ono Band would in the 70s. I think this is a fantastic record.
It's a good one.
Yeah, 84 is another. I'm not really keen on the 80s in general. I'd say it's my least favorite decade up until the 2010s. But the more I sort of look through the decade, the more albums I realize that I like.
The 80s, the 80s needed a deep dive for me, but I'm growing more in appreciation as I keep listening to stuff, as I get into different bands and I get more accustomed to the stylings of the decade.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd say I think you said Heartbeat City was close for you.
Very close. Heartbeat City.
Yeah, that'll be up there for me.
Of course. My 85 winner, this is a runaway for me. This is my favorite thing that this band ever did. It's actually my highest rated 4.5-star record in general.
Okay, I was gonna say Kate Bush, but then you said band, so I'm
No,
No,
I
it's
don't know how
not.
big
Hounds
you
of
are
Love.
on the Cure.
it's not Hounds of Love, my friend. I have
Is it The Head on the
history with
Door?
her. It's not the Head on
Is
the
it-
Door, but that would be very close.
Oh, is it what else came out in 85?
I can tell you. Psycho Candy by the Jesus and Mary Chain. Just an absolutely amazing noise pop record. I think that this is just brilliant. It's 14 songs and it's just perfection pretty much all the way through. I don't know why I can't give it a 5. Just stuff like Just Like Honey and their vocal deliveries and their sort of unique sense of melody and songcraft. It's very different than the traditional stylings of pop that happened in this decade, but it's still so direct with said influences. Like it's very pop forward, despite everything around it being so noisy and so abrasive. It's such
That's
a
a cool one.
dense.
It's like
listen.
the 60s filtered through noise.
Absolutely, it's so good.
No love for my Norwegian boys. Aha! I don't even know why I have this record, but
No,
just do.
I love that record.
5. I'm not sure.
I think that record's great. I love that one.
Yeah, I've given it a few spins.
Yeah, I was thinking of picking up one of their, because they have an original album series of their first 5 records. I was considering picking that up a little bit ago, but just never got around to it.
Yeah,
80s.
I might be wrong, but I think that's 85.
I believe that's 85. Yes. I loved their Bond theme in that video. I think The Living Daylights is a great song.
Yeah, definitely one of the better Bond themes.
86 is another interesting year. Yeah,
Easy pick for me. I don't know about you.
I think we might agree. Although I think that we also have one that would be very close to winning that we would probably agree on.
Okay, so I know you're
That's
not
probably
that
the one.
high. I know you're not as high on me with King of America.
That is true.
I don't know how you feel about Blood and Chocolate.
I do prefer Blood and
I'm gonna
Chocolate to
guess
King of
so
America.
for 86.
Believe. Yep. So by Peter Gabriel. The record I was talking about with you, Andrew, if you didn't pick up on it, it's Brotherhood by New Order.
Interesting. I was going Queen is Dead.
I'm not a Queen is Dead fan. That's my least
Yeah.
favorite Smiths record, which I know is like crazy, but I still think it's good. But yeah, in my opinion, so by Peter Gabriel, much like some of these other records. As you can tell, my list in the 80s, it leans very pop, but it's not necessarily the immediate pop that you come to think of. I think that this is Peter Gabriel's peak as an artist. It has so much unique atmosphere and sort of it's just such a unique vibe record, I guess is the best way to put it. I think his hooks are great here. It's very good at blending traditional pop structures, but ending up as this own unique sort of feeling. You can tell Peter Gabriel came from a weirder point musically, and that he's able to put his own imprint on pop and able to make it just like his own stuff like Sledgehammer and Through My Eyes. Just really, really a great record to me. One of the best of the 80s.
Yeah, I need to check out more Peter Gabriel. I mostly know the singles.
Yeah. I'm not the biggest Peter Gabriel solo fan, but I think that listening to his records are definitely rewarding. He's an interesting artist, and I think that he's really, you have to think, he's a thinking man's artist. He's not Phil Collins, which just went off.
What?
I like Phil Collins solo. I don't know if you've seen the video, but I was sort of positive.
Yeah. Take him or leave him.
87 is also a fun year. It's a unique one. I do have a runaway for this year, though.
Ooh. The U2 thing has thrown me because you picked boy. You said you almost went with war.
Yeah.
But I don't think the Joshua Tree would be a runaway for you. So I'm going to stick with what I thought originally, which is You're Living All Over Me.
Ooh. Not quite.
That's what I was going to say too. So
Interesting, because nobody brought up Darklands by the Jesus and Mary chain, which is right next to Psychocandy. But my runaway for this year, I also can't talk about much. It's Sister by Sonic Youth.
Ooh.
I can't say too much because I have a Sonic Youth video in the works, but yeah, this one ranks very high for me. I think it's amazing. 88, another interesting year though.
yeah,
It's weird because it's like such a middle ground because 87 has such a defined sound to it in a lot of the popular records. And it's like 88, 89 is just sort of trying to pick up from there.
you're definitely starting to get more of that, like, alt rock, college rock sound that
For
we seen
sure.
in the 90s.
For sure.
Can I just say, I think I'm going to stay until 2000 because it's getting very late here.
Ah.
I don't want to be rude, but
No, you're all right. Any guesses for 88 out of curiosity?
Should I try another Sonic Youth pick, Daydream Nation?
oh yeah, that's
It's
a good
not
one.
it's not quite there. It's not quite there for me. Give it a year or two. Give it a year or two.
I honestly don't know.
Now, I will say one that was very close, and a couple records that were very close, notably Bluebell Null by Cockatoo Twins, however you pronounce that.
I'm going to guess
And-
Dinosaur Jr. again, Bug.
I'm not a big Bug fan. That was one of my more controversial things, but very close. Bluebell Null by Cockatoo Twins. I don't know.
Is it Green by REM?
It's not Green by REM. I'm actually not the biggest Green fan. And also Surfer Rosa by Pixies was very close. But my winner is Spirit of Eden by Talk Talk.
Nice.
I don't get to talk about it much, but I love post-rock. I love this sort of atmospheric, pseudo-jazzy type of realm that this record operates in. It's very clean cut. It's not very... It feels very calculated, but it equally feels very frantic and very just going at its own pace. It's super interesting. In my opinion, this is the peak of this band, but I love pretty much every era of Talk Talk. And to me, this is just an outstanding record.
Yeah, I don't love post rock, but I do like when Talk Talk does it. So
For sure.
Yeah, I agree with that.
In 89. This is a good year, but once again, I think maybe a slightly overrated year.
I think so. I think as someone who loves like 60s and 70s, I think this was like a year of kind of comebacks.
It definitely was.
Some of those artists kind of getting out of the 80s sound and sort of, it's a bit of a transitional year, but
For sure. You have Rush put one out. Tom Petty had a good record this year.
I'd say overall maybe a little overrated. I'm going to guess for you, first pick will be Pixies, second Stone Roses.
well, you got my top two, anyways.
Funny, because those are probably my top two, but actually, no, not my top two, because my second place would be Pretty Hate Machine by 9 Inch Nails. But my winner between Doolittle and Stone Roses is the Stone Roses. I think this record's outstanding. To
great.
me, just a really, really wonderful. You can tell that this was kind of like where so many Britpop bands just like stole their sound. And I think that this is really great. It has some of the really unique and fun, sort of almost college rock influences, jangly influences of earlier 80s records, but it's so forward thinking into the 90s of later Britpop and incorporates such great songwriting. It's a shame that I hear that this band kind of turns into dog water after this record, but I'm
Didn't like their second record much.
I haven't heard it yet, but I'm going in with high hopes.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah, it's
might be a bad
shame.
idea.
It's a shame they never really gave it sort of a proper worthy follow-up, I feel.
I mean, there was a second coming, but
Yeah, it's just I think they could have done better. Also, I think it's getting very late here. I'll go
Okay.
through the 90s, and then if you don't mind, I'll head off. If that's all right.
it's all right. But yeah, we're in the 90s now. Definitely a bit of a transitionary period in 1990. But yeah. There's one record that I think could overtake my winner, but I need to re-listen to it. So I have one thing set as my winner right now. Any preemptive thoughts for that?
I'm just gonna throw
I
it by
guess-
later.
Ooh, yeah. That's a good one.
I don't know. I don't think Bossa Nova would win it for you if Pixies didn't.
Also incredibly good
Oh,
guess.
sorry, if Do Little didn't win for you in '89, I don't think Bossa Nova would win for you in '90.
I like Bossa Nova more than Doolittle.
Okay.
Doolittle's actually my least favorite of the big three Pixies records, but I love all three of those, so it's really not much of an insult to be my least favorite of them.
Yeah, that's
I will
the Cocteau Twins.
Also a very great record, but I will say you are very close in saying Pixies because my winner is Goo by Sonic Youth. Once again, I can't talk about this record much, but just a really great, really, really great indie alternative rock record. The record that I do think could overtake this, though, is a bit of a holdover from the late 80s. It's Jordan the Comeback by Prefab Sprout. I listened to that earlier this week, and I just absolutely loved it to pieces. I could see that being a 5-star record if I were to re-listen.
I need to listen to that one again because it didn't hit me the way 80s prefab did, but
yeah. I also love like Steve McQueen, and I'm not as high from Langley Park to Memphis, and I didn't much care for Swoon. Like Swoon feels like one that I should like, but I just wasn't crazy on Swoon.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jordan the Comeback really hit me in a way that the other records didn't. Now, 91, arguably when the 90s really did start.
Okay. Because of all the U2, well, only a couple U2s, I'm gonna guess Uptown Baby.
Okay.
All right, let me throw out 10 and Laughing Stock.
I will say, I probably like Temple of the Dog more than 10.
Okay.
And I like Octung Baby more than I like Laughing Stock. Really, U2's sort of peak as pop artists, unlike the record Pop. It just has such a unique sound, and in my opinion, is really the pinnacle of where the band would end up in what they were doing. It's super different from Rattle and Hum, but it works in an equally great way with all of the sort of almost pseudo-industrial and dance influence that's all across this one. Just really outstanding to me. Something like One and Serious Ways, just really, really great.
Yeah, that's definitely up there for U2 for me.
Yeah, it's my favorite U2.
Family going on there.
For sure.
Still like a pop, sensibility, but
Absolutely.
experimenting with the 90s sound. So.
And to save you, Harvey, this is my last U2 record. That's even really in contention.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking of stuff like Songs of Innocence being it for 2017. So yeah, I think I like Uptown Baby. Listen, I'm not really a U2 fan in general, but I do think it's deserving of the praise it gets.
For sure. Now, 92 is a bit of a weaker year, I would say, than 91, but there's a lot of really great stuff here as well.
I think it's obvious what it's going to be. I think Summer in Paradise by the Beach Boys is just like the pinnacle of music. So
how did you figure it out?
I know. I'm just that good. I'm just
Ye-
on fire here.
You know, the Beach Boys never really clicked with me until Mike Love was the one that took over.
Oh, same here. I was Ryan Wilson stuff. Leave whatever. I
The
want
hell,
Mike Love. Mike
the
Love
hell,
talk rapping.
the hell is the heroes and villains?
I know. What's it called? Summer of Love. That's my God only knows.
However, I much prefer the NASCAR record from '98, the Beach Boys Salute NASCAR or whatever it's called.
Classic,
That's
classic.
my personal favorite Beach Boys record.
Mike Love's solo album's also up there for me.
I think his solo stuff is missing a bit of the raw potential.
Yeah, not enough talk rapping for me. Not enough 50-year-old
Sure.
Mike Love talking about Baywatch or whatever he's doing.
We should stop talking about Mike
My real
Love for
guess is
our own good.
my real guess is going to be Honey's Dead.
I'm pretty sure it's not REM and it's not Alice in Chains. So let me say Bone Machine. Go back to Tom Waits.
Ooh, I'm surprised that you guys didn't bring up my actual winner. And I actually think that this is weird because I give everything by YouTube, but not YouTube, by REM in the 80s 4 stars. But I give everything by REM in the 90s 3.5 stars. So it's not automatic for the people. But it is Wish by the Cure.
You should have gotten that.
Yeah, just a really great record. I used to have it at 5 stars. I bumped it down recently. And I could see other records possibly overtaking this. But to me, this is kind of like if Disintegration was a little bit more pop focused, a little bit more grounded in what it was going for. And it still had the extended jamming, the sort of longer, more track-based material, but I think that it's better executed here. I mean, it has better pop sensibilities, which is what I love in my Cure. Which is why this and The Hell in the Door are my favorite Cure records. So
Yeah, I think I should have seen that coming. I think it's just because no Cure in the 80s, maybe kind of.
Yeah.
But Wish does make sense, and I know what your 93 is going to be because we've talked about it before.
I think you both should know my 93.
I have a guess.
Do you want to go ahead and say it? Because
Yeah, it's going to be August and
Harvey?
everything after.
what were you going to say?
Oh, sorry, did I cut out? Oh, sorry.
I was thinking PJ Harvey.
Ooh, 93. What was that? Is Sire or Dry?
It's Rid of Me.
Ah, that's what I thought of. I don't know why I said Is This Desire. I actually do prefer Dry to Rid of Me though. But one record that almost wins it for me is Exile and Guy Felt I Was Fair. I think that record's amazing. But Harvey did get it with August and Everything After by Counting Crows. I love the Counting Crows. I think that their first 4 record run is just outstanding. In my opinion, this is their peak. Really reminiscent of the band and what they were doing in the late 60s, updated with a 90s alt-rock approach, almost a bit of jangly elements in there. And Adam Duritz is just an incredible lyricist on all fronts on this record, especially. Really love this record to pieces. The only complaint is, I think, A Murder of One is entirely out of place as the closer. However, the song is absolutely brilliant, so I don't really complain that much about it.
Yeah, there's no doubt that that's an amazing record, and I think
Sure.
Counting Crows, maybe fairly rated in sort of our community, but I'd say outside, I think they deserve a bit more respect in comparison. Well, not that they deserve disrespect, but I think they deserve a lot more respect than they get maybe outside of us. My one complaint about the album is not the closer, but it's the opener. I don't really like Round Here.
I love that song. I think it's the best way to open the record. I don't know what else you would open it with, unless you have A Murder of One at the start, which I think could work out better, and then just move everything down a slot.
Just not really a fan of the song in general, I feel, but
fair enough.
That out the way, I absolutely love everything else on here.
For sure.
So yeah, it's not my favorite Counting Crows record because there's one in 96 that I think is going to be it again for you.
Ooh,
but
nice.
Yeah, I'd say it's a very strong 4.5 for me.
Yeah, 94, almost universally praised as being one of the greatest of the decade.
Are you going Buckley?
I'm not going Buckley. Jeff Buckley is very close though.
Yeah, there goes my pick.
You know, I'm going really basic. It's amazing.
Oh,
It is. It's a perfect pop rock record. It's an amazing power pop piece. My name is Jonas. No one else. The world is turning and left me here. I'm done. The sweater song. It says a lot that unironically, my least favorite song on this record is Buddy Holly, and that's still an amazing pop song. Regardless of what Weezer went on to do in the 2000s and beyond, the first two records are, in my opinion, truly undeniable. Just really outstanding pieces of power pop.
Yeah, I like them.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
that era.
I agree. I can see that. I think that's definitely. I'd say maybe I prefer Pinkerton more, but I think there's no denying the Blue Album. You can meme Weezer all you want, but yeah, like you said, I don't think anyone can take those first two albums away from them.
For sure.
Even I mean, I don't really think they get Weezery until Make Believe, which was what 05. I think Green
Yeah.
Album and Maladroid are pretty underrated too.
I like a decent bit of
Yeah,
the Weezer canon.
I think, yeah, no doubt that the first two albums are pretty much masterpieces.
For sure.
I am surprised it won over Jeff, but
Um,
actually not really.
there's one song on Brace that I'm just not that into. Past that, it's a 5-star record. Here, let me look at the track listing real quick because it's one song, and it's the only reason why I don't quite have it at 5. Past that, it's an amazing record though.
That is my seventh favorite album of all time, and my favorite that's not 60s or 70s.
Nice. The only issue with it for me is Corpus Christi Carol. I just don't much care for that song. The rest of it's great though. So yeah, 95. It's a bit of a weird year. Doesn't get quite as much praise, but it's still very good.
I don't even know what I would say for 95 offhand.
Hey,
Hey,
I don't know how this is going to go down, but this is my guess for you.
I am a pretty big Oasis fan. I like them a good bit. My favorite is probably the Master Plan. I do really like that record. I only have it at 4 stars because I don't like the song She's Electric. I really don't like She's Electric.
That is actually the only Oasis song that I really like.
Why do you have it on vinyl?
Christmas present. I guess someone thought because I was into the Beatles that I must love Oasis.
Well, yeah, Oasis are better than the Beatles.
If I wasn't leaving before, I am. No, it's.
But yeah, my 95 record is Trace by Sunvolt. To me, the pinnacle of alternative country music. This was the first record Jay Farrar made after the fallout of Uncle Tupelo. And I love AM by Wilco, but this record absolutely destroys it. I think it's some of Farrar's best writing of all time. Some of the best just songcraft of the entire decade is found on this record. And it's just really just a beautiful listen front to back. And he would never quite reach this again, which is really unfortunate, but there's plenty of very good Sunvolt records after this one.
Yeah, I haven't heard it myself.
Neither.
I think,
For
as you
me,
can
it's
tell.
Benz, but I
Ooh.
know that I think you have later Radiohead in higher regard.
I definitely like later Radiohead a good bit more than the Bends,
Yeah.
but the Bends is still probably like my 4th or 5th by them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also just to comment on Oasis for a bit, I haven't even unwrapped that vinyl, so.
I was gonna say it looked like it was still wrapped.
No, it's been like this for. I can't remember when I got it.
That's
But,
fine.
yeah, maybe the Bends would be it for me. I'm not sure. Supergrass have a pretty good debut.
Yeah,
I don't know how you'd feel about them though.
I've listened to Supergrass. I'm not a major fan. I really like I Should Coco. I think I have a complicated feeling about In It for the Money, but I love Life on Other Planets.
I think those are the top 3 for sure.
For sure. 96 though. Bit of an interesting year as well. I feel like I say this all the time. Just not really that crazily regarded, I feel, but definitely some standouts.
Yeah, I'm down between the follow-ups to both to 93 and 94, Recovering the Satellites and Pinkerton.
Interesting.
You've said that I don't remember what you've said about it, but I know. I'm going to guess Recovering the Satellites.
Okay. Andrew, any guesses for yourself?
I think the same thing.
Well,
There you go.
yeah, this is interesting because I marked this down, but I could have sworn that I had a different record. I can go with this because I still do love this record, absolutely.
What
But
else would it have been? Pinkerton?
it wouldn't have been Pinkerton. There's something else. I'm looking at my Rate Your Music now. Okay, no, I know what happened. The record that I actually want to discuss, even though I love this one, it's Tiger Milk by Belle and Sebastian. For me, that record is just brilliant. It's maximalist twee pop brilliance. I think that the writing across that record is just gorgeous. The melodies are amazing and just truly beautiful on most accords. But Recovering the Satellites as well, it's just an amazing alternative rock record. Just so many great songs across it and so much really interesting material. And it's a really cool sort of divergence from August and Everything After, which was this heavily banned and sort of almost folky influenced rock record that had a slight alternative rock touch. Recovering the Satellites is that like turned up to 100. So yeah, you got a 2-for-1 deal there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite. That's my favorite record by them. I think it's pretty much perfect throughout. It's 5 stars for me, and I think it really showcases Adam as one of the most. I don't want to say underrated, but I think he's definitely kind of a different kind of front man. He's still kind of got that confidence of him, but a little uncertainty. I think it's a good match.
Absolutely. Especially for the 90s, he feels so out of place.
Yeah.
But just his writing is great. Anything to add on?
There are some points like in the later albums where he kind of reuses lines.
Yeah.
Like, but you know that doesn't apply to this at all because it's perfect and amazing.
For sure. There's not a ton else in 96 I was really considering, but it's a good year, just not quite to the level of the other ones. Like got Dancing to the Light by Phil Collins. That's of course a great one. You have my least favorite record of all time, Sublime self-titled. And then one that's very close to me that I absolutely love is First Band on the Moon by the Cardigans. Just amazing. I love pretty much anything that the Cardigans did. So, but moving on, we got 97. And,
Great year.
for sure. If you know me, there's 2 big ones. And it's really between those 2, despite there being really great records as well. There's like stuff like Whatever Never Amen by Benfold 5. And there's definitely some other stuff. But big 2 for me this year.
All right, here's where I'm going to drop in Radiohead. Okay, computer.
Fair.
I'm not gonna guess Radiohead. I feel like I don't know how big you'd be on OK Computer.
Okay.
I'm gonna say the 2. I think I can't remember what the Sunvolt album that came out this year is called.
Straightaways.
I know they did have one, and because you went through it for 95, I'm gonna guess that. You said you have a complicated relationship within it for the money, so I'm not sure. We'll stick with the Sunvolt one. I can't even remember what it's called, but
Straightaways. A big one, 2 big ones that didn't make it for me are some indie rock titans. We have The Lonesome Crowded West by Modest Mouse, as well as Perfect From Now On by Built to Spill. But the record that ends up taking it for me is Handed Over by Dinosaur. To me, it's their peak as a band. It's an incredibly unique and incredibly well-made alternative rock record. It has some of their most unique songcraft and production styles that they would go for. And it even has like a full-on country sort of ballad that's getting rough. Just really, really great in my opinion. Their best record to me.
actually haven't listened to much Dinosaur Jr., but I know they're quite highly regarded, especially within our sort of community. So I'll definitely check them out. I was
sure.
going to maybe guess Either Or. I know we've got Elliott Smith planned for December, but
I've not actually heard either or.
wasn't sure how you'd feel about Either Or as an album.
I've heard XO and then I've heard his 2000s ones, but I've never actually heard anything before that.
Oh,
I know the latter half of his catalog, not the first half.
and I actually prefer the latter half.
That seems like a not too controversial stance. So I can't fault you or anything. But now we got 98.
That's
Definitely a
interesting.
drop off.
Doing a deep dive on that right now.
NASCAR Beach Boys all the way. Easy.
My
Nice.
apologies. I did give that away earlier.
Yeah, sure. Bad host.
Yep. Well, what can I say? Any immediate guesses for 98?
98. This is. I know we're meant to be doing a deep dive at the moment, but I haven't even started.
I haven't either, so it's okay.
I got myself a new number one today, actually.
Ooh. Interesting. What was it?
I don't think it would be yours.
What is it?
I did Tori Amos from Choir Girl Hotel.
I only know Little Earthquakes by her, and I gave it 3.5. I thought it was good, but I love it. I do plan to get around to that record though.
Yeah.
When the porn was 99, wasn't it?
It was, and if you've seen the Fiona Apple episode, I have an interesting relationship with that record, to put it lightly.
I know you're a big Wilco fan, so I'm gonna guess Mermaid Avenue.
Okay. This year, I feel like it's fair for you not to get, because this is a bit off the beaten path for me. I'm going with Moon Safari by Air. Really incredible electronic record. Has some, like I've been mentioning before, just gorgeous soundscapes, incredibly well-written songs, and just, I say this all the time, it's just good music. It's just incredibly well-made music. And it's super unique within the year. It's super unique to me because I don't know a ton of electronic and like EDM, IDM. But to me, this is a perfect point to like get into it, because I think it has enough almost like melody and really beautiful songcraft that really anybody could get into this record, even if you're not necessarily as familiar with those genres.
We'll definitely check that one out.
For sure. And one that
Haven't-
I also love a
haven't
lot.
listened to that one either.
One that I also love a lot is Something About Airplanes, the debut by Death Cab for Cutie. I think that one's very good as well. And
for a year that we're meant to be doing a deep dive on at the moment, I don't really know 98 too well. It's probably, other than the 2010s, probably the decade I've delved least into.
that's
But I'd say from what I know, I'd say EXO wins pretty comfortably for me.
That's fair. I believe EXO made my top 5. One that also I really like is The Aeroplane Into the Sea by Ichimoku Hotel, because I'm a little bit of a nerd, a little bit of a geek, if you will. And now we have 1999 to close out the decade.
Okay, I'm thinking Soft Bulletin here.
Okay.
I'm gonna guess Wilco again with Summer Teeth, because I'm sure they'll come up at some point. But
Interesting.
also, I might throw in This Desert Life, since I know how much you love the Counting Crows.
I do love This Desert Life, and I love the Soft Bulletin. It is absolutely my number 2, but my winner for this year is actually Keep It Like a Secret by Built to Spill. Just really incredible indie rock. Built to Spill have a very signature, a very defined sound. But on this record especially, I feel like it works in their best way. It's not overblown, and all the songs are really well contained and held. It just has their best writing, and to me, Doug Marsh's best playing, which is really the key to a great Built to Spill record. Like most of these records, highly recommended. Although I think of the decades, this might have the least 5 stars that I've talked about yet. This in the 80s. So yeah, that's my 90s draw. I'm pretty happy. I wish that I remembered to put Tiger Milk in instead of Recovering the Satellites, but it's fine.
Happy accidents.
Happy accidents. And important to note, 1998, a very important record. Chumbawamba with Tub Thumping. Very important record to me.
Can I swear on here?
What's up?
Can I swear on here?
Yeah.
Fuck Chumbawamba.
Hey, fuck you. I love Chumbawamba.
Can't stand them.
I love them. Get off my show.
Oh well, it's Friday for me already. I should probably be in bed, but
No, it's fine. I don't care. I am
I'll keep going for a bit because I do
Okay.
like the 2000s.
2000s, my favorite decade. 2000 itself, though, very good year. Very good year. Any instant guesses?
Not sure.
We were having the conversation earlier here today when we were guessing people's ratings and what album it was. And I believe you said in passing that Parachutes by Coldplay was 5 stars for you.
It absolutely is. I will say, What You See Is What You Get by Chumbawamba would make my top 10 for this year. But my winner is a name that, if you know me, you know incredibly well. It is Bachelor Number 2, The Last Remains of the Dodo by Amy Mann. To me, Amy Mann is one of the greatest songwriters just in general. She is my second favorite artist of all time. I think that she's absolutely stunning. All of the music that she makes is just gorgeous, especially within this decade. To me, her songcraft, it's just amazing. It's a very sort of low-key, in a sense, almost orchestrated, just gentle, but inviting sort of pop rock with a strong sophistication, I would say, and a maturity that other artists just don't quite match. And on this record, it's probably her best writing, paired with some of her greatest arrangements, but it's not my favorite by her. But regardless, I still think it's absolutely tremendous.
I need to start looking up Amy Mann and Margot and the Nuclear So-and-So's release dates here.
Ooh, you really do for this decade, I will not lie.
Oh, okay.
01, definitely the weakest year in a bit for me. 01's a very good year, but it doesn't have like that overt standout.
I kind of agree. Yeah. I'm kind of
Namely because I don't include Yankee Hotel Foxtrot for 01.
Yeah, that would have been my guess if we counted it.
Yeah.
It's
I count
a
that
gray
for
area.
01 as
It had
02.
2 releases.
I've always known that as 02, so
Same. Any guesses for 01? I feel like this year could really go a lot of different ways.
I don't even think it's your favorite Strokes, but I'll just throw that in as a
It's not my favorite Strokes.
yeah, I was also guessing the Strokes first thought, but
Different strokes for different folks.
I'm sort of blanking on 2001 albums.
I do that a lot. Because 01 isn't great. But my winner for 01 is actually going to be The National with their self-titled record. I'm a bit of a slut for The National. In a lot of ways, like Amy Mann, I just think Matt Berringer is an incredible writer. He has such maturity and such sort of warmth in all that he does. On this record, they were very much discussing sort of Americana, early folk, indie folk. And I think that it allows Berringer to further demonstrate just how brilliant of a lyricist and a vocalist that he is. And I think that this has some really beautiful and amazing national songs that just don't get talked about, especially Anna Fries. I think that song is the pinnacle of this early national era with their first 2 records. I will say Is This It would be very close to winning, though. As well, Owen Varied World by the Shins would be pretty high up there.
Right.
02. This one,
Yeah,
Probably
it's
Wilco this time.
Yankee Hotel Foxtrot.
Yeah.
it's not Yankee Hotel Foxtrot.
Oh, there's going to be some Amy Mann album.
Okay, let me try Yoshimi. Yoshimi, that's my
Oh
second guess.
God, I wish Yoshimi could be my winner. I love Yoshimi so much. But Harvey is absolutely correct. It's some Amy Mann bullshit. I love the shit out of this record. It's what got
Sounds
me
like
into
a good
her.
year for you if those other 2 aren't winning.
02 is so good. This year, 02, 07, and 05 are some of the most crazy years just in general. 02, you have stuff like Alice by Tom Waits, Life on Other Planets, Songs for the Deaf. I don't care. I love Songs About Jane by Maroon 5. Make Up the Breakdown by Hot Hot Heat, Turn the Bright Lights by Interpol, debut. You have the debut Nora Jones record, A Rush of Blood to the Head. Oh God, this year is just so good. But
I'll say about the 2000s. I think 2004 and 2005 are the best back-to-back years since the mid-70s.
I agree that 2005 is one of the greatest years, if not, in my opinion, the greatest year of all time. 04, I'm a little less high on, but it has some amazing songs as well. But yeah, pretty much everything that I said about Bachelor number 2, I feel the exact same way about Lost in Space. I just personally connect to Lost in Space a little bit more. But to me, there isn't a bad Amy Mann record, and especially in the 2000s, she has plenty of vibes. So moving on to 03, maybe a year that potentially gets a little bit overshadowed due to how outstanding 02 was.
The year I was born.
I was born the following. I will say, I believe that there was a Chumbawamba record this year that wouldn't quite make my list.
I'm going with some follow-up records again. Shins or Strokes.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Youth and Young Manhood.
Okay, yeah, that's Kings of Leon. I blanked there for a second, but I love Kings of Leon, especially the early stuff. But you had it, Room on Fire by the Strokes.
Nice.
It's like a perfect rock record for me. I think that this is just, it took everything that they did great on Is This It, but just tighter writing, more interesting instrumental passages, and just, I think Julian is at his best here. To me, this is like a perfect rock record, just really amazing. Based upon the poll that I'm doing, I'm probably covering the Strokes in December. Spoiler alert, this is almost definitely my favorite Strokes record, but yeah, I'll have Rich there to sort of switch things around. But yeah, 04, there are two big records for me in 04.
Okay, I'm not going to guess Wilco this time.
Okay.
Pretty underrated Elvis Costello album, but I don't think it's going to be Delivery Man.
I mean, I
I'm gonna
love the Delivery
guess-
Man.
I'm going to guess number one. Is it fair if I have two picks? I'll go. Number one will be Funeral. Number two, guess Hot Fuss.
And Andy?
I'm thinking Funeral.
Well, let me say, Harvey, you were absolutely correct. Funeral is my number one. Hot Fuss is my number two. They're both 5 stars. I think they're amazing. I just don't want to keep talking about Arcade Fire, though. It's unfortunate, but
Yeah.
yeah.
That's,
Fuck off, win. Let's talk about 05 now, like I've been alluding to.
moving on.
All right.
Possibly the greatest year in music for me, so.
Yeah, I know I'm not as I know I'm more of a 60s and 70s person, but I think 05 is by far the best. I'd say it's maybe the best year since 77.
That's wild. I mean, I would agree because I think it's the best year, but
This isn't my decade, but for you, I'm going to throw out the Margot debut. See how I do.
here's the thing. The Margot debut is interesting.
Yeah.
Because I count it for 06, because that's the version that is most commonly regarded on streaming and is the
Okay.
version that the band sort of sticks with.
So put a pin in that one
Yes,
for now. Okay.
If
Does
we're
Amy
gonna
Mann have
keep
anything this year?
she did. I think that may narrow down the guessing.
Well, 2005, if we want to keep talking about controversial artists as of recent, Late Registration.
Yeah, that's a 5 for me. Did Ryan Adams have anything this year? Let's just keep adding on.
Oh, he does have an 04 one.
Can't go listen to Ryan Adams despite the scum that he is.
I know you absolutely love the Big Star Reunion. I think that's definitely a contender.
It's a strong 2-star record right there.
I didn't think it was that bad.
The song Love Revolution is horrible.
That song sucks.
Yeah.
I can't remember if you like Demon Days or the Gorillas in general.
I love Demon Days. But I will say, you brought up my winner before. My winner is Extraordinary Machine by Fiona Apple.
Ah,
This is one of my more contentious opinions on the channel. This is my favorite Fiona Apple record, and like by a good bit. I think that this record is just absolutely brilliant. I think it has her best writing, and I think it has some of her best just songs in general. It's just, in my opinion, her peak as an artist. And I know nobody agrees with me on that because I did the video and both people had this at the dead bottom. But to me, I can't really explain it. I just think that it's brilliant in all accords.
I mean, a bottom record for her is better than a lot of artists. So
I mean, a bottom record for her is probably better than most artists' records that we've talked about already. So, again, is incredible. So, 06. This is such a weird year. It's like 06 is good, but it's such a step down from 05 and even 04 to me.
I think it's a pretty noticeable step down from 06, and 07 is a pretty big step up from 06.
Oh yeah, 07's crazy.
I think I'm gonna say for this one, Arctic Monkeys debut.
Ooh, I do love that record.
I'm gonna go back to Margot again, but say runner-up to Arctic Monkeys.
What? It's almost like I revealed this already. Yeah, this debut Margot record is just brilliant. I think Richard Edwards is one of the greatest writers just in general, and his voice is just absolutely incredible. Songs like Skeleton Key, Nightmare, Broadwell is Burning. There's just so many incredible songs on here, and in my opinion, it's a peak of indie rock that just nobody knows about. Really, really brilliant record to me. But 07, like we were mentioning, a bit of a step up from 06.
Big step up.
Oh, yeah. We're finally getting back into me owning vinyl, by the way, so
Let's
take a little break there.
I'm trying to figure out what the latest one I have is. If you disregard all the compilations, I'm not sure. I might, no clue. But 07, could it be Neon Bible?
It's up there.
I was gonna say I'm just gonna keep guessing Wilco every year until, but I don't think the Sky Blue Sky is gonna make it.
I love
think,
Sky Blue Sky.
You said you prefer late period Radiohead, so it could be In Rainbows.
That's what I was thinking, In Rainbows.
I think my final guess is gonna. I don't know. I'm gonna guess In Rainbows.
I was also thinking In Rainbows. Yeah, just a brilliant record. To me, this is Radiohead's peak. I know people say the Bends, I know people say OK Computer, but to me, this is their most captivating front to back listen. Just a really, really incredible record. I think that it's probably Tom's best vocal record, in my opinion. I love what he does on this record. And I just think that the writing, with the time that they were able to take away after Hail to the Thief, I think that they were able to better improve within that time and just showcase their talents again. I don't understand the like vitriol this record gets in our community. It's weird to me just how this record doesn't get just the same amount of acclaim that so many others of theirs does.
It's not my favorite Radiohead album. I actually think Hail to the Thief is my favorite from the 2000s.
Yeah, that one's
Yeah, I
great.
agree with you that it doesn't deserve some of the slack that people give it.
Yeah. We've seen casual 2.5 stars for In Rainbows, and that's just mind-blowing to me.
By people, I mean the people that we know our community, and yeah,
Clayton.
No, can't imagine Aiden being a big fan either.
Ooh, Aiden has gone on record about his stance on Radiohead.
I bet, yeah.
Oh, 08.
Um,
I'm not as big on 08.
No. I can't, yeah, there's not. I think those previous years had a lot of big hitters.
Mhm.
Does 08 really have one? Because there's nothing that really jumps to mind when you think 2008.
There are a couple, two that immediately come to mind, but I don't love either of those records. The two for 08 that like I immediately think of are Vampire Weekend's debut record as well as Fleet Fox's debut record.
Yep.
However, since I told you both of them, I think you can assume that they aren't my number one.
So I have the Margot page open and I see there's more albums. So
Oh, you
I
bastard.
can throw that in there.
Ah,
Yeah, I'll go Margot too.
you're cheating wench. Yes, Animal by Margot and the Nuclear So-and-Sos. To me, this is just the pinnacle of indie rock of the 2000s. I think that this takes everything that was going on the debut, but it just makes it even stronger, makes it even tighter. And they're such a unique band because they have such like sophistication in their music. It's incredibly, especially early on, it's like almost orchestrated and just stunning to me is the best way to put it. Richard Edwards, as I was mentioning on Dust to Retreat, I think that his writing is even better here. Songs like Oh What a Nightmare, I Am a Lightning Rod, Mariel's Brazen Overture, and just so many amazing things like German Motor Car, Cold Kind and Lemon Eyes. If you don't know this band, I can't recommend them enough because I think that they're just absolutely brilliant at most things that they do and most things that they are known for. Even Richard Edwards' solo album from this year, I thought was incredibly strong. So, and with that, we're at 2009, which is probably my least favorite year of the decade, besides maybe 01.
I think 09 is probably the weakest for me. You're sort of kind of getting in. You sort of know what's. I don't know how big you are on the 2010s, but
I'm a
probably my least
pretty big
favorite.
fan of the 2010s. I think there's some really amazing stuff in that decade.
Yeah, I just haven't done a deep dive. I feel like that's the problem.
sure.
Like I know the big albums, and I know sort of the artists that I followed through 60s and 70s. I know the albums they put out there, but I'm sure I'll have a different opinion when I do a deep dive. But
For sure. I can send you some records.
Tell you any sort of not deep cut albums, but albums that someone from my position wouldn't really know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really know the big albums. But 09, it's not going to be Wilco. I don't think that's going to get a mention from you.
I love Wilco, the album. I'll throw that out there. I think that record is grossly underrated. I love the Nils Klein era. I'll say that.
I know you're a big. I know I keep coming back to him, but I know you're a big fan of Secret, Profane, and Sugarcane.
I am. I love that record. But I'm gonna throw a wrench in your hole because I'm going to Andrew's Land because I'm talking about a Canadian artist for 09.
Oh, did Sloan have an album this year?
If so, I haven't heard it.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to think of a big Canadian artist release that year.
I don't know how big they were at this time because they aren't like too big, but they've had hits. Should I just go ahead and reveal?
No, let me think for a bit more. Let me think. No clue. Just reveal it.
I'm talking about Sainthood by Tegan and Sarah.
Ah,
I love this record. This is my favorite Tegan and Sarah record. They're an indie pop duo at this point. Most known for the Everything Is Awesome song from the Lego Movie, I would say. But on here, they just have such amazing pop appeal. Their writing is really they have such a unique way of writing. It's really self-contained, I would say at this point, but it's incredibly well done within what they go for. And I think on this one, it's their best blending of the pop sensibilities that they had, as well as the earlier sort of folk elements that they would do. To me, this is my favorite Tegan and Sarah record. I think that's really brilliant. So that's my 2000s recap right there.
yeah. When we were sort of going through the years, I was reminded of how good some of these years actually are.
Oh yeah. But now, interesting. Now we get to the dark ages for some, the 2010s, which I love this decade. I think this decade is very strong. But I do get why others aren't quite as into it.
And the reason why I say it's my least favorite decade is because I only really know the mainstream stuff.
Yep. Well, on the plus side,
I'm gonna do a deep dive, and I'm gonna come up with multiple 5 stars.
Mhm.
But
On the plus
that's
side,
what I know.
from
I
right
do-
here.
I do kind of feel a bit bad shitting all over the 2010s, but
I mean,
you
from
know,
right here, you're gonna get 10
I'm
recommendations.
not a
So,
fan of what I'm not a fan of what I know, but
Oh.
I'm sure I'll find something.
Yeah.
I've
I
got to guess
will
2010 though.
I will say 2010 is definitely a weaker year. I don't think the 2010 started out great, but there are great records all throughout. Any guesses for 2010?
High Violet.
I seem to remember that not being your favorite one of theirs. It could still be good enough, but let me throw it at Gorillas.
I love Plastic Beach, but no, it's High Violet. My least favorite national record. I don't know if you know this, but my least favorite national record is a high 4 stars.
Pretty good.
I have 7 national records at 4.5 or higher. I think the national are incredible. I think High Violet is probably their best overall album statement. Even if I prefer Boxer and Trouble Will Find Me. I think as a full record listen, this is a really enthralling, really captivating release by the group. It's the one that feels the most contained and the best as a full record listen. And I really can't say any more aside from just I think that Matt Berringer is truly incredible. And the drums all across the national discography is just to die for. Love the drumming. And there was a Margot record this year, so that could have been a safe guess. Unfortunately, there's only 2 more Margot records in existence, sadly.
Yeah, when did the Crane Wives come along?
I'm not telling you that because that's soon. On to 2011. Another, it's probably 2010 through 2012 are probably of an equal level to me. They're all pretty good, but not like great. I think I have like a runaway in 2011 though.
I don't know. I was gonna guess Wilco again with the Whole Love, but now that you've mentioned Crane Wives, I'm gonna go with that.
I mean, I love the Whole Love. I like the Whole Love more than I like Safe Ship Harbored. Also, I haven't even talked about the Crane Wives to you. How is this getting around?
Just a legend now.
Well, somebody has to be an
It's
obsessive
just-
fangirl.
It's just what you said about you won't have to wait much longer, or something like that.
Fair enough. But anything from you, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm not sure anything that I would pick. I don't think it would be in your wheelhouse. So
Possibly,
Curious
but I'm
what you
going. Let England Shake by PJ Harvey.
should have said that.
This is my favorite PJ Harvey record. A bit of a concept record about early England and like World War I or something like that. I don't know, but I just think that her writing here is great. I love the different songs, escapes she's able to inhabit, which I say that a lot. I think that this is her most interesting because of the concept and how she's able to work that into things. It feels like her most experimental in a little bit, and especially coming off of White Chalk, which I did not much enjoy. It's the only PJ Harvey record that I don't like. This was just an absolute breath of fresh air, and I just love it to pieces.
Haven't heard it, but he's got a cool last name.
I'm not sure how you would feel about PJ Harvey. I think they'd be an interesting group because they had Star as a band, but it became a solo record by the time of Is This Desire, I believe. No, To Bring You My Love. That being said, though, going into 2012, another year that I don't think that my number one is initially expected from me, but we'll see.
Could it be Death Grips or Born to Die?
I've never actually heard Ex-Military, or was this the Money Store year? Because I do love the Money Store.
This was Money Store.
Yeah, I'm a pretty decent Death Grips fan, but they didn't take it from me.
I'm gonna guess Born to Die.
Andrew, you have anything?
That's a good one.
Yeah. That is my favorite Lana record, like by a mile.
Can't think of anything, so I'll throw it Fiona again.
That's actually my least favorite Fiona Apple record by a decent bit. But this is going to be an interesting one because I have Channel Orange by Frank Ocean.
Mm.
I think this is a really great sort of modern R&B style record. Compared to somebody like Miguel, who does other sort of modern R&B, I think that this is just leagues and shoulders above. I think that Frank is just such a captivating writer, and the songs that he's able to make are just beautiful. Stuff like Bad Religion, Think About You, just his melody and his hooks on these are just infectious. And he never made something that I know that was quite as good as this. Like I can't get into Blonde as much as I can get into this record. So I think that this is just like a perfectly crafted sort of modern pop R&B style of record. And I think that he perfected that. And he's too creative an artist to just sort of sit back and accept how brilliant this was that he made. He's wanting to evolve further and further. And I commend him greatly for that. It's just, I wish I liked what he was making further. That makes sense.
Okay,
But yeah.
I feel pretty comfortable with your next year.
Oh, really? I wonder what it could possibly be.
Trouble Will Find Me.
Yeah. I think I've said enough about the National, but this record is just brilliant. It's either my first or my second favorite National record. It's very tight between this and Boxer, but to me, this is Behringer's best writing. I think that the band itself is at their best peak here, and it's just brilliant to me. 5 stars easily for Trouble Will Find Me. Just incredible.
I could have sworn it was going to be Life, Love and Hope by Boston.
That's a tough one. It's really close.
Close second, I think, to the National.
I don't know. There's some really great stuff in 2013, but yeah, I don't know. I apologize to Boston. We couldn't quite make it, but want to toast to, in my opinion, the worst year since 1966, 2014. I don't like this year much at all. I don't have a single record above 4 stars. So,
Ooh.
which the last 4-star record to win a year was De Capo. So,
No clue.
yeah, I don't blame you.
I'm just gonna for a laugh, I'm just gonna guess a shitty reunion that came out in 2014. Who had one? The Babies had that awful 2014 record. I think that's gonna win.
True. If only I've heard it. I bet it's great.
Let's try Margot again.
Margot doesn't take it. And I'm a bit embarrassed by what does take it, because my top 2 are actually pop records from this year. My number 2 is 1989 by Taylor Swift, but my winner, fascinatingly enough, is Talking Is Hard by Walk the Moon. I think that this is a great pop rock record. I love songs like Underdog, Save Your Money. I think Shut Up and Dance is a brilliant pop track. To me, it's just a really, really great pop record. Almost taking Vampire Weekend indie pop into an even further, just like straight up direction. I don't know. I think that this year is really bad, so I don't have much fault in picking something else. If I wanted to go for a more respectable pick, I guess I'd go like Sea Change by Beck. But just 2014 was a really subpar year for me, generally speaking.
As someone who doesn't know the ins and outs of all the albums in the decades, I know that I've heard that 2014 is not good.
Yeah. So 2015 is a little bit better, but I still think that this is definitely the lull 2014, 2015 of the decade for me. Speaking of 2015.
There is one artist that I love from that debuted in the 2010s, and I don't think it's something that you would guess. I don't
Tame Impala?
Sorry, what was that?
Tame Impala?
No, it's Courtney Barnett.
I've heard a little bit. I need to look into her.
I think just from what I know, her debut this year is probably my favorite of the decade.
Okay. I feel like I'd probably like her from what I know.
There's probably better ones around. But I don't know any other big 2015 ones, so I'll guess her.
Fair enough.
This can't be right, but I'm just gonna throw To Pimp a Butterfly just because.
I do love To Pimp a Butterfly. That record's so good.
I forgot that was 2015.
But I do prefer Good Kid, Mad City, and that didn't win. So, But you should have kept going because Coyote Stories by the Crane Wives. Very similar to the National and a bit of a slut for this band. I just think that they make some of the greatest indie folk Americana music out there right now. It's very simple. It's you don't need to think that hard about it, truthfully speaking, but their writing, it just really resonates with me. I love the two front women. I think their vocals and their melodies together are just absolutely superb. Yeah. I'm not going to sit here and act like they're this brilliant group that you need to be listening to, because they very much aren't, but they just connect with me in a way that very few other musical artists do. This is still only like 4.5 stars for me, though. I don't rate their records as highly as other ones that I could, but I still do just like love them as a band. And moving forward, 2016, much better year.
I think they have another one, and I think that's your favorite.
What, you're telling me that record is going to be my number one?
I think your favorite of 2016 is going to be Angelic to the Core by Corey Feldman.
I apologize, Andrew, but Harvey is absolutely correct. No, I do have two very strong runner-ups this year that I want to shout out. Three, actually. The 4.5 star, because I had 3 5s this year, and I have a very strong 4.5. The 4.5.
I might know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've recorded this one or yet, but could it be the 1975 debut?
That was 2013. This year was I Like When You Sleep, For You Are So Beautiful Yet So Unaware of It Yet. I do really like that record, but that one's only 4 stars for me. The record that is very close to my top tier but doesn't quite get it is Emily's D Plus Evolution by Esperanza Spalding. And then the 2 5s that don't quite take it are The Life of Pablo by Kanye West, my favorite Kanye West record, and The Party by Andy Schaaf. But yeah, it's Foxglore by the Crane Wives. Very similarly to what I said about Coyote Stories, it just speaks to me in a way that a lot of music quite doesn't. And I don't want to love it as much as I do because I understand it's so simple, it's so sort of basic, and it's really not all that interesting. But I just can't deny how much I resonate with the songwriting and how beautiful I think that the vocals are across this band. So, in case you didn't know, this is my favorite record just in general, though. So,
I've heard you speak about this one.
yeah, I've mentioned it once or twice. On to 2017, a year which I do think is a letdown for 2016, but it's still pretty good. Any winner picks?
I don't even know any albums from this year at the top of my head.
And that's a good sign.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, is this the year that Flower Boy came out?
I have not heard Flower Boy. I love Igor, though.
I reckon it's going to be the latest Blondie record. I think that is going to take it.
Pollinator is pretty close to getting there.
I'm thinking Sleep Well Beast.
Sleep Well Beast was my number one for a while, but what has recently overtaken it is Okovi by Zoa Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Really sort of experimental, sort of unique avant pop record. I think her vocals are just absolutely gorgeous, almost operatic across this record. And the way that it flows over these really just experimental sort of soundscapes. It's kind of like a lot of people will say a band like Animal Collective are sort of a modern experimental pop group. But I feel like this is closer to more of an experimental hip hop record with the heavy bass influence, the loud drums, and the sort of unique synth playing. I feel like this, but with this operatic, sort of gorgeous singer over top of that instead of, say, MC Ride. I think this record is really great, and I highly recommend it. And 2018, another year that has a bit of a runaway for me, but we'll see.
It could be that shitty Fall Out Boy album that came out in 2018.
That's my second least favorite record ever.
Okay. What's your least favorite?
Oh, Sublime.
I'm gonna guess Tranquility. What's it called? The Arctic Monkeys one.
Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
that's the one. That's the one I know.
Well, at least you have one for this year.
Okay.
I think I remember you talking a while ago about the Voids, and I see they have a record here. So
It's
my
not
guess.
the Voids. I actually only give that Voids record 3.5, but I do really enjoy it. My winner, though, is Historian by Lucy Dacus. I think that this record is just totally beautiful. It's very reminiscent, I would say, of sort of 70s songwriters in a way, kind of like a Joni Mitchell in some senses, almost like, hell, even like a Carly Simon. But it has this strong sort of indie rock influence. Some parts even remind me a bit of Dinosaur Jr. with like heavy distortion. But what she writes about is just so personal. It's so haunting, but it's beautiful at the same time. And her vocals are just sublime, just front to back, just incredible. The song Non-Believer as well. The song Non-Believer especially just gets to me every time. And Body to Flame is the big one that I think that everyone should listen to. That being said, we're at the 2019. Pretty solid year. I don't think I have any fives though this year.
I've
Very
got two. I've got two this year.
Okay.
I've got Ode to Joy by Wilco and Titanic Rising.
I will say, if you like Titanic Rising, you will almost definitely like Historian.
Okay.
I mean, Titanic Rising is mine, but I don't think it's yours.
It grew on me with a re-listen, but I'm going to be brutally honest. I kind of forget what I put down for 2019. I have a couple of 4.5s, but I don't think I have like one that I'm head over heels for. I don't know how much you guys will like this, but my winner is going to be Charlie by Charlie XCX. I love hyperpop. I love PC music. I think that it is incredibly unique and beautiful in a lot of ways. It has sort of elements of industrial and noise pop and all of these different like avant elements, but it incorporates such strong melodies and pop sensibilities. And if you know Charlie XCX, it's probably from her hits that came out in 2014, like Boom Clap, Break the Rules. She had the collab with Iggy Azalea with Fancy. But pretty much all of
Forever. I'm not sure when that came out.
which one was that?
Forever, I think it's called.
I'm blanking on when that came out. I think that may have been 2017. I'm not sure. But yeah, I just think that this record, it's incredibly interesting. It's incredibly captivating. And if you're able to get into hyperpop, which I understand many people just simply aren't because they just think it's just a bunch of blank noise and it doesn't really have that sort of element to it that really captivates them to come back. I understand. But to me, I just think that it's incredible. With that, we have 3 records remaining.
I was just going to say, Charlie X. I know her because we went to school in the same town.
Oh,
So
that's
that's
cool.
kind of cool.
That is kind of cool. Well, we're into the 2020s now. Only 3 records that can be discussed here. And I'm convinced you guys are not going to get my 2020 record. I see zero shot that you get that.
I know it's Bon Jovi 2020.
That is correct. How are you this good?
Just amazing. I mean, the records speak for themselves.
It's true. It's true. Brilliant work. Andrew, any
I
guesses?
don't have a good guess, but I'll give a shout out to Jesse Ware because that's my album of the year.
I've been meaning to get to that. We're going very Fantano core though, because that was his number 1. I'm picking his number 3, Peaceful as Hell by Black Dresses. I know I've mentioned noise pop a lot. This is kind of the pinnacle of that genre to me. It's incredibly hard hitting, almost has elements of post-hardcore in elements, but it's so abrasive. It's so industrial influenced. And the writing is just really just direct and just, it's a heavy record. And it's almost taxing to listen to. But if you can get into the sound, I think it is incredibly rewarding. And it's made by a bunch of LGBT ladies. So pride. Yeah. That being said, though, 2021, I think a much easier record that you guys for you both to guess.
Oh, I know what it's what's her name?
I think it's the same as I had.
Oh,
I can't
I'm
remember her
trying to
name.
remember what your winner was this year.
I had trouble, but it was Jubilee for me.
I'm trying to think of. I know there's an out. The name's on the tip of my tongue, but
You don't have to worry about it because I got my vinyl right here. Jubilee.
Nice.
It's just so good. It's incredibly indie pop influenced, but it has so many other draws to it, like electronic elements at some point. It's almost like slight dubstep on a certain track. Paprika, Be Sweet, and In Hell Alone are just purpose to listen to this record. But the more and more that you listen, the more and more rewarding it is. The stuff like Posing in Bondage, Tactics, Savage Good Boy, just it gets better and better with every listen. And especially on vinyl, it's remarkable, that record.
I think the Ed Sheeran record from this year was absolutely robbed, furious.
I did listen to that multiple times, actually.
Oh, was
It's
it
not good. No,
Oh,
but
shocked.
fuck no. It's bad.
Is that the one that he did with what's his name, Justin Bieber?
That was 2019. This is the one with like his current hits that are bad.
Oh yeah.
Well, on to 20.
The one with his current hits that are bad. That's
The script, I
every
know.
album.
Now 2022. This is an interesting choice, but it's very much in a camp that you can probably tell that I really enjoy.
It's this year, and I have no clue.
Makes sense.
Yeah, the trouble is like thinking back to earlier in the year because I'm all in what I've heard lately.
It's
it could be the Nickelback album that came out last week.
it is more recent. It is a more recent record.
Could you give us a month?
I'm blanking on the exact month. I think I'm blanking. I think maybe October. It was September or October, I'm pretty sure.
No clue.
That is perfectly okay. But the record that I'm going to be talking about now is, oh, interesting. I am going to be talking about I Walked With You a Ways by Planes. This is a bit of a duo between Waxahachie and Jess Williamson. It's barely over a half hour long, and I just think that it is absolutely gorgeous. Very much hits me in a similar vein that most Crane Wives records hit me in. It's just a beautiful blending of Americana and alt country. Really just gorgeous front to back. Their voices complement each other incredibly well. Their writing as well. It's a very simple record. It's a very standard for the genre, but if you like it, I think if you like that genre, you're gonna love this record, I feel. As well, a quick shout out to Waxahachie's record in 2020, St. Cloud, also very good.
I think you liked my number one, Blue Rev.
I like Blue Rev a good bit. It's probably my second favorite Always record. I probably prefer Anti-Socialites a bit.
Yep.
For whatever reason, I was thinking you were really high on the Black Country New Road. I guess like the Baroque elements sort of, it makes me feel like you would enjoy it.
Yeah, it's got some good stuff. As I said, kind of like that, more like, it's a bit post-rocky still.
And it's got elements, but for the most part, I'd say that dissipated, especially from their first record.
Yeah.
But yeah. A lot of great stuff. A lot of good records. And I'm just going to do a quick recap here. And just sort of list my favorite record of the decade and how I would rate them. Unfortunately, Jubilee does have to fall at the bottom of this 7-album ranking. It's only been around for so long, and I can't really justify putting it any higher as much as I would want to. Directly following it is going to be Music from Big Pink, actually. And I love this record. I think that it's truly amazing. The primary issue is just I don't like the 60s as much as other decades. So that's really all I have to say about that. Next up, I have August and Everything After by Counting Crows. And pretty much all of these future records are probably somewhere in my top 15 favorite ever. I think this is an amazing alternative rock record. Showcases elements of the band. Just love some other records more, like Summer is Finished by Bebop Deluxe. Just really incredible glam rock, incredible art rock, with some of the best pop writing of the decade. Same thing could be said for Imperial Bedroom. And in case you didn't realize, that leaves us with My Bullshit at the top. So, with that being said, this is the list for anybody curious. If you want to do whatever you want with this, feel free. This is my 58 records from 1965 to 2020 and ranked in my order of preference. Is there anything immediately here that you guys want to be like, no, that's horrible?
Let's see how many we have in common.
If I had to guess, maybe 0.
No, I've got 2 so far. I've got the Slider and Imperial Bedroom.
True.
And the Covering the Satellites.
That
Where is it?
that was supposed to be Tiger Milk by Bell and Sebastian. I don't know why I fixed it here, but not elsewhere. That's weird.
I'd say we probably have Slider and Imperial Bedroom, maybe August and Everything After as well.
What about Funeral? Or do you have something else for 2004?
So I think for me, it would be maybe both ELOs actually.
Ooh, nice.
Stone Roses could be there.
Yeah.
Maybe Funeral and Jubilee.
But you're telling me that you guys don't agree with De Capo?
I like that album, but the 60
Maybe if it came out another year.
yeah.
If I'm being honest, that's probably the only year that it would have ever had a chance to make my top 5. So that goes to show how weak of a year 66 is for me and my absurdity in that. Because
there's only a few picks overall that the ones that I know, which I pretty much know all of the 20th century ones.
Yeah.
There's only a couple that I don't really like.
Oh. Well, what are my big stinkers? What are my big whiffs, if you will?
Sorry, what was that?
Well, what are my big stinkers? What are my whiffs? Like, where did I really fall flat?
Don't like Darkness on the Edge of Town.
Oh, really? How could I have ever foreseen that one?
I'm not crazy about Boy winning an 80. And listen, we talked about this earlier today, but we're just not going to really see eye to eye on the 67 debate. So
we're not going to see eye to eye on the Stones versus Beatles debate.
Yeah, but I think I can live with Between the Buttons winning.
But which, funnily enough, we had that whole debate, and I still think that I probably prefer the Beatles as a band.
Yeah, and I feel like that made it seem like I hated the Stones, which I really don't. It's just the Beatles versus Stones debate is just so obvious to me. Like, why is it even a thing? That's how I think of it.
It's tricky for me because the main thing that makes it as difficult as it is for me is the Stones have those subpar records after Some Girls. Well, really after Tattoo You, I would say.
Yeah.
I've heard pretty much every Stones record except for, I believe, I've heard all of them except for Undercover and one more.
Steel Wheels, right? Yeah.
Yep, Steel Wheels. And I like most Stone records. I have most of them at 3.5 or higher. But it's just the ones that don't care for as much, just lack a ton that would make me want to go back to them.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel overall too. I think I have 10 4 stars, 10 that are at least 4 stars, which is more than most bands are ever going to get. But I don't know what it is as to why I can't fully love them. I don't know. I think I only really kind of love them in 67 with the sort of the psychedelic detour. I think is quite cool, and I just kind of wish they followed it up more on that. I like Beggar's Banquet, but I think it's really overrated.
Well, some people have to be wrong for the world to move around, so that's okay. I much prefer 60 Stones to 70 Stones. It's like the one band where I actually feel that way about.
I'm definitely more 60 Stones too, but
Yeah.
they're also like a top 5 band for me, so
Totally
I still
fair.
like the 70s a lot.
They make my top 50, I would guess.
If I think if we're just looking at like what albums I've rated, I think they might make top 50 for me. But as a whole, I just like I think I said this earlier. Other than Satanic Majesty's Request, which is my favorite Stones album, I just don't find myself going, yeah, I'll listen to, even though I think they're great, I don't find myself going, oh, I'll listen to Exile today, or I'll listen to Let It Bleed.
I kind of feel that way about a lot of their records past Let It Bleed. Even though there are Some Girls is the main exception for me, but for the most part, I'm not as high on their catalog post Let It Bleed.
Yeah,
For me,
I think Sticky Fingers is one of, okay, I think it's a good album, but I think it's doesn't really deserve its place as like a pinnacle of rock and roll. I think it's fine for what it is.
but do you like it more than A Nod is as good as A Wink to a Blind Man? That is the question.
I think Sticky Fingers is better.
But no. Yeah, for me, the Stones, it's more like a window. And that window is out of our heads through Let It Bleed. That's like the period that I have the most fondness to.
That's still a lot of albums in there.
Oh, for sure.
More
It's
than
like
many bands' careers.
it's like 6 or 7 records right there. So
I'd say I would go from Out of Our Heads to Satanic Majesty's Request.
that's fair. Well, with that being said, I figure we'll leave this Stones talk for another day.
Yeah, that's maybe a good idea because it's 1 a.m. here. So
It's not even 9 yet. It's barely 8 o'clock right now. That being said, I hope that everybody had a good time. I hope that my picks can be properly criticized as they should be. And with that being said, I believe next up is going to be Peter Green. Should be going up hopefully sometime next week. Hope that you have a great holiday, and I really hope that you enjoyed everything. But
Thank you.
of course.